you raise this Call the June 23rd Grand Forks County Board of Equalization meeting to order. Just a couple housekeeping items. If we could please identify yourself when speaking. Please don't use the speakerphone option. It distorts the voices. And then when not speaking, if you would please put your speaker back on mute, would be great. So Amber, I'm going to turn this over to you, but this is a review, an appeal hearing for the Sterling properties. And I believe we have 55 properties that we're going to be reviewing today. And if you could just, I'm not sure what your plan is. I'm sure that we'll review each of them, but will we be making a motion after each property is reviewed, or will this be at the end? A recommendation?
Madam Chair, this is Amber. I see it being we can start with Sterling properties. They do or say what they need to say. Them were all, and maybe all of them were done in a very similar way. And when he's done, Ms. Lazur can speak. And then if you're comfortable, we can act on them as a whole unit since the recommendations are going to be the same.
I can barely hear you, Amber.
How about now?
A little better, but you'd have to say more so I could tell.
I just have to get really close to my computer. How is that?
That's much better, thank you.
Okay.
So you want
Did you hear what I said?
To start out today.
So I would like, well, the last order of business is the equalization of the Sterling property appeal. And you've seen the correspondence from Sterling Properties and Ms. Lazur. At this time, I would like the Sterling Properties person to say what they would like to say. Then I turn it over to Ms. Lazur, and then we can end with the recommendations for all of them.
Hi, this is Drew Thompson, Sterling Properties, representing Sterling Properties. Am I coming through okay, audio?
Can I have you speak up a little louder, please?
Yes, of course. Drew Thompson, representing Sterling Properties. Thank you, Amber.
Welcome.
If I'm understanding correctly, you'd like to, is this a document that'll be provided to us, or are we going to go through the properties? Just so I understand the process here.
Hey, Drew, you can speak however you'd like to speak about your properties.
Understood. I have no further commentary to add at this time. If that was what you were allowing for, I thank you for granting us the time. We don't have any further commentary.
Okay, then Ms. Lazur can go.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Tammy Lazur, Deputy Assessor for the City of Grand Forks. Sterling Properties has appealed 16 of the rental complexes. Some of these are one parcel appeals and others are multiple parcels. The applicant submitted combined income information for multiple parcels. As you know, North Dakota law states that each parcel be valued at a true and full value on a per parcel basis. To combine parcels for valuation purposes, valuation conclusions can be affected. In the past, we have provided you with supporting documentation for that whole group that the taxpayer has combined. We've done this in the past in an effort to make the appeal process coincide with the taxpayer's financial information. But because valuing properties together as one economic unit can affect value, what we've chosen to do today is to provide you with supporting documentation for each parcel for the 2020 valuation. In your staff report, you're going to find that the staff report is going to give you total valuation by each approach to value for the entire complex. But when you review and go through each staff report, I am going to have given you first cost approach for parcel, and then income and a sales comparison approach for each parcel. So I am supporting each parcel's valuation, even though I've been giving combined financials. My reasoning, logic, comments apply for all of these properties that we're discussing today. So again, as I've done in the past, I'll make group comments, and if you have more comments or questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. As I stated, we consider all three approaches to value: the cost approach, the sales comparison, and the income. Over the past 2 to 3 years, we've reviewed and received many income and expense statements from various parties, in addition to having conversations with local appraisers and local apartment owners regarding our local market. Sterling did provide us with the last 3 years of income and expense information. And what we have found is, again, that their actual operating income is very, very close to our assessment models. This tells us that our income approach model is calibrated appropriately. Our assessment model uses our local market data for rents, vacancies, expenses, cap rates, and gross income multipliers. With respect to the sales comparison approach, our gross income multipliers, or GIMs, are used to derive our comparable sales derived from our comparable sales over the last 3 years, and those gross income multipliers provide us with a rough estimate of value and is obtained by dividing the sales price by the gross rental income. This data is supporting that our model is based and is calibrated by the market. Equally important is equity amongst properties. Reviewing properties similar to each of these properties shows that our values are fair, consistent, and equitable. And yes, thank you, Debbie. That's the page that I'd like you to refer to. With each of the properties, Sterling has provided this one-page report. They have shown their property when they purchased it and 3 to 4 comparable sales within the last 2 to 3 years. Then they've also below that taken those comparable properties sales and used their 2019 assessed values. They've come up with an average from those assessed values that's showing down in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. So in this particular case, they've used the 5825 times the gross building area of 60,372 to come up with, if you scroll up a little bit, Debbie, for me. I'm sorry, down, the other up. Thank you. So taking that 58 times the 60,000 provides them with that 3,516,900. From that point, they've reduced their request by 2%. That's how they have come up with their proposed valuation of 3.446562. This methodology is not valuation. This methodology is not appraisal practice. This methodology really suggests that the value requests are not based on market data, but are based on an arbitrary value. In addition to that, as you look at those comparable sales that they're showing, our assessed value per square foot of $59 for this particular property is totally supported by all 3 sales that they are showing here. This is true in all 16, I call them 16 parcels or complexes, even though some are individuals and some are multiples. But this is what we have found, that their market data, their data on this page is supporting our values. Again, the requested values are not supported by the market, but are their perception of value or an arbitrary value. I want to be sure and be fair, equitable, and consistent, and therefore my recommendation is to deny these value reductions for all these properties. I'd be more than happy to take any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Tammy, thank you for your explanation. Drew Thompson here, again, representing Sterling. Tammy, thanks for your explanation. I don't have any further questions or commentary. Perhaps it'd be a good idea for us to follow up afterwards to make sure we're, again, further understanding your methods and how we can best tailor our understanding and best tailor our ability to understand your method. But no further questions at this time for the board or for you, Tammy.
I do have a question, and Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I do have a question on these properties. All of these properties are apartments and townhomes that are for rent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so Mr. Thompson, when these units are they for any income? So in other words, those that are low income would income qualify, they would get a housing voucher for these? Or is this just for moderate to higher income that can pay for their own unit?
Yes, to answer your question, I would categorize these units as tailoring the workforce housing or the residents in the workforce in Grand Forks. I could check back and get to an answer to you whether any are under any sort of affordability act, or I wonder if you're hinting at something like that. I didn't quite understand the vouchers comment, but I can follow up and see if any of our residents receive vouchers or are covered by any affordability acts.
Yeah, what I'm asking, what I want to know is if these units are available for lower income families, then they would get a housing voucher. And in receiving a housing voucher, they would get a rate or be qualified for a rate that's set by the federal government based on the greater Grand Forks area. That's what my question is.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. My understanding is that some of these units do follow that program, but any comment would be speculation. So I'd love to actually research that, find a firm number, and get back to you. Could I ask who was asking that question again?
This is Cynthia Peach.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Could we correspond through, Tammy, would you be able to provide contact information, or what's the best way to get a hold of you, Cynthia?
You could just send it to Debbie Nelson and she could forward it on to the whole commission.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Commissioners, does anyone have a question? Okay, hearing none. Amber?
At this time, if nobody has any questions, we can approve or deny all of them as a bunch, since they're done in a very similar manner. And so at this time, I would recommend that we uphold the Grand Forks City Assessor's valuations for all of the parcels.
Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would be so willing to move forward on that motion.
So a motion to uphold.
Uphold what the City of Grand Forks Assessors has put on these properties.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all we have today.
That's all we have. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Thompson and Ms. Lejour and Amber. Appreciate your input. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you for your time.
May I have a motion from the board to adjourn?
I so move.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for your time, commissioners.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate your help.
Yes, thank you.